Hello everyone, my name is Aaron and I am here to answer the simple question of why is Cult of the Lamb? Now this is a game, let me tell you. So Cult of the Lamb is the undesired and unspoken child of games such as Don't Starve, Stardew Valley, Binding of Isaac, Harvest Moon maybe, not really, but kinda. You'll see why I'm saying that here in a second. But this is a game that has combined all of these interesting elements. So you've got a very off-putting, yet kind of cute, but still off-putting art style. You have got a village management. You've got farm management. You have got procedural generation. You have got just creepiness. You've got all these different elements that are being brought together, and they are bound together with something very, very simple, and that is freaking heavy metal. Yes. So, not actually the music, just the idea. Let's go ahead and get into this really fast. Cult of the Lamb is a game where in this world, for reasons that are not initially made clear to you, these bishops, these powerful, almost Lovecraftian style beings, have hunted down every single sheep in existence. They've hunted down the entire race and committed genocide, basically, all in the hopes of preventing some prophecy from coming true. Now, initially, of course, you're not told what that prophecy is, what it entails, but it's obvious that these bishops are not too keen on the idea of it coming through. Usually what that means is it's going to be a loss of power. So the game begins with you, the last lamb. You are the last sheep left alive, and they have decided to sacrifice you. And they do. They kill you. They cut your head off. They literally cut your head off. It's kind of fantastic. What happens, though, is that your soul goes and visits another eldritch-style being that is being bound. And it tells you, hey, if you worship me, I'll send you back so you can get revenge on those dudes, but you've got to set me free. Those bishops imprisoned me, and I want out. You say yes, you don't have a choice, otherwise there is no game. You go back and start wreaking havoc. Now, this is where you get into the core mechanics of this game. It is very reminiscent to me of almost a mixture of, like, Legend of Zelda, like the older ones, stuff like Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, stuff like that, as well as Binding of Isaac. The game is set up in a procedurally generated fashion so that every single time you go to a dungeon, it is different. However, it works exactly like how in Binding of Isaac and Legend of Zelda does, where you'll walk into a room, there are things to do in that room, and there are one or more doors leading to another room, which ends up forming this just dungeon that you will see on your map. The map is almost identical to like the old Legend of Zelda style ones, where it's just boxes indicating where you are, and then there's like, oh, this room has a bad guy in it, and you know, what have you. The game does let you know certain rooms so you can choose a path. That way you can determine what kind of resources you want to gather, because unlike in those other games, resource management is also a thing. So the idea is that you've come back and you need to take down these bishops. Part of the way you're going to do that is by forming your own cult. And you are going to recruit new people into your cult and bring them back to your home, where you're going to then have the village management style of the game. And this is going to entail literally everything. You've got to get food for these people. You've got to provide them with shelter. You have to clean up for them. You are going to be able to do research that allows you to unlock new and better things, such as outhouses, actual beds, prison stockades. I mean, you name it, everything and anything that you would need to progress this town and develop a cult as you see fit. And it is simply put just fantastic. The overall aesthetic of this game is wonderful. Like I said earlier, it has this mix of disturbing and also cute, all rolled up in one. And me personally, that is something I absolutely adore. I love creepy stuff. Like most people, I also enjoy cute stuff, but I really, really get into disturbing style stuff. And this game has it in like a plethora. You've got this adorable little lamb who you play as, and you are surrounded by these horrific looking creatures. I mean, these things are diseased sometimes, they are deformed. Some of them are just woodland creatures similar to you, like there are deer and fish and dogs. And then other ones have these bizarre horns and mushrooms growing out of their heads. And even then, you can't take any solace in the fact that you're a cute lamb, because whenever you activate your demon powers, basically, your eyes glow red, you bleed from the eyes, you unleash these horrific curses like opening rifts in the ground for tentacles to come out and rip people apart. It's amazing. It is freaking hilarious and it's awesome. And this game doesn't pull any real punches with it either. I mean, you are making a cult and it makes it very clear. You can get people to join you, or you can make people join you. You can kind of be nice to them, or you can be awful to them. And it's awesome. You can form whatever style you want to. I mean, obviously there are some limits because, you know, the game is not infinitely large, but you can make your decisions. Do you want to have an option to sacrifice your cultists? That way you can get resources, or you can get power boosts, whatever. Or do you want to actually have ceremonies that allow them to go to a higher plane? Now, granted, the kicker of it is they still die, but it kind of is like off screen, so it's somewhat more like nice, quote unquote. But it's fantastic. This game is the exact kind of thing that someone like myself just absolutely loves. I love this creepy demon heretical nonsense. It's just fun. It's just amazing fun. And that's exactly how this game plays out. Now, as I played through it, I did have a couple things where, yeah, sure, it's a little frustrating. The resource management in this game is not necessarily forgiving. It's also not super hard, at least on the difficulty that I played at. Now, that being said, one thing I was dying for, not literally, but basically, I was dying for was wood. I ran out of wood like real quick, and it was a nightmare to get it. Now, the game does this so that you have no choice but to actually go into the dungeons and do the dungeon crawling part, because otherwise you could just stay in your town and just like hang out and never actually do the story or half the game. I mean, it makes total sense, and it wasn't like it was impossible and I was getting like game overs and having to reload. None of that happened. It was just, they make it very clear you've got to do both sides of the game to actually be able to do it, to like do either side of the game, so to speak. Because if you don't do the dungeon crawling, you're not going to have cultists. They do grow old, they will die on you, and you've got to do the main part of the game, go dungeon crawl, find new cultists to bring back home to replenish your stock, so to speak. But at the same time, you can't neglect your town and just dungeon crawl, because then these people are going to revolt on you, they're going to die, all kinds of horrible things are going to happen. So it is a balancing act, but they did it well. So I played on the normal difficulty. They call it medium difficulty. It's the recommended one. I personally am one of those kind of people where I only ever play on the recommended difficulties usually. I'm not a sweat lord who's looking to play on the hardest difficulty to prove that I can do it. I'm not a completionist where I have to get every single achievement or unlock all items. It's just not my style. And so, yeah, I played on the normal difficulty, and it was challenging enough. Like, I never had a moment where I was like in danger of failing, like oxygen not included, for example, where you make one slip up and it's now just this slow descent to death and you can watch it happen even though there's nothing you can do to stop it. There was nothing along those lines. It was still well managed. I just had to make sure that I was trying to do the things, basically. And it was just super fun. This is a great game. It is kind of grindy in a way, but it's also not going to be super grindy. I mean, it's definitely no World of Warcraft grind. It's just grindy enough, and it's for those kind of people who like doing procedurally generated dungeons, so you can keep dungeon crawling over and over and over, and technically you're doing the same thing each time, but it's still slightly different each time. And it's also a town management, and as anyone who has played any town management can tell you, that's the literal point to it, is that it's a grindy game. That is why you play it, is because it's a grind, and you're just doing these incremental advancements to do the thing. And that's just how it is. More than anything, it's the aesthetic of it that really wins. It reminds me the most, I think, of like illegitimate love child between Binding of Isaac and also Don't Starve, I think. It's very reminiscent of both of those games. The procedural generation dungeon crawling aspect of it feels very Binding of Isaac. In terms of it's got a little bit of bullet hail to it, but not really. It's got where your main bad guys will have like stages, but not really. And it has, attack, dodge, and powers. It's very, very good. And then the colony management, town management, however you want to say it, that is very Don't Starve to me. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful because of that. To answer the question, why is Cult of the Lamb? Cult of the Lamb is because sometimes the lamb leads you to slaughter. All right, thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it. As per usual, if you would like to, please do like and subscribe and drop a comment below. More importantly, however, hit me up in the Discord that we have in the description. We always have a fun time talking there, and I would love to hear about some of the horrible things you've done to your cultists in this game. And on that note, I will see you in the next one.